Welcome back to Politics Tonight, and if you're just joining us tonight, we're discussing the Supreme Court affirming President Bola Tinubu's victory as President of Nigeria. And I've been speaking with the lawyer, Edoigiawerie, and the APC candidates of the 2023 presidential election, Kachikwu. Gentlemen, now before we went in that break, let me buttress Mr. Kachikwu's submission. The appellants made a case for voter suppression, and it was struck out by the Supreme Court. I mean, evidently this judgment is a lesson for all politicians. But for you, how important is or crucial is the role of polling unit agents? Well,
I'll respond with a popular quote in law that he who asserts must prove. If I say something, I must back my statement by proof, with the requisite proof. And like I said, dissecting court judgments is not one that you make, you do in a flighty manner. But for the sake of information, especially for the public, it's important that they understand that the failure of the petitioners lay strongly in the fact that they were unable to prove their case as far as those polling units were concerned. And the Court of Appeal gave a very clear, concise breakdown of how they have failed to do that, right? So if you say you won in TVC Studio 1 and you were disenfranchised or your results were changed, you've got to prove it, right? One way of proving that is having a polling unit agent come and give direct evidence to say, I was there, I saw it. Any other thing would be hearsay, right? And in evidential rules, that automatically has its shortcomings. Hearsay evidence does not carry as much weight as direct evidence from the actual participants in the action. So, those are some of the things, and they relied heavily on INEC and INEC's inability to transmit, and that's reduced the potency of their case. But the courts clearly have stated it, so we've learned what are the lessons to learn from there. Learn those lessons and move on. But we must not now forget the place of public opinion. We must not now forget the place of social media. We must now realize that we are now in an era where even social media has the capacity to make its own rules, to create its own principles. And if the institutional established principles are not clearly explained, impartially enforced, these public policy principles and social media rules will, they could be like weeds. You know what weeds do to the actual crop? They outgrow the crop and kill the crop. And so you must now have an intentional flow of information to weed out information such as this.
But how shocking is it for you that Labour Party calls this a hijack?
The Supreme Court judgment?
Absolutely.
Well, I wouldn't want to. I'm a lawyer, and I'm a minister in the Temple of Justice. And I am under oath to respect the institutions that I belong to. I have listened to the judgment. I have read the Court of Appeal judgment. I have listened to the Supreme Court judgment. I do not see where they have deviated from the rules that we all know. But you see, they say 2 lawyers, 3 opinions. Everyone speaking will speak from their own area of bias. But I would say that it would be a bit stretched and a bit too much to refer to any of these judgments as a hijack.
Mr. Kachikwu, the Labour Party says it disagrees with the Supreme Court judgment and described it as shocking. How will you react to that?
Well, the Labour Party has to say something to justify the humongous funds they received from the public. They have to take this as far as possible. They had to give them a reason to believe that they could win this. And as they have said, since they've not gotten justice from the Supreme Court, they are going to the court of public opinion, and obviously, I'm sure they will still try and raise money from the public for this purpose. I don't believe at this point we should really try and belabor their opinion or what they are saying, because their conduct, as far as I'm concerned, was very dangerous to the safety and health of the Nigerian country, Nigerian nation. I believe our focus right now should be on how we can bring all Nigerians together to support our government to move Nigeria forward. Our issues still remain our issues. We wasted so much time on this court case. We wasted so much time educating this court case, both in the courts and also in the public spaces. But our issues still remain our issues. After the judgment was given today, we still have issues with our infrastructure. We still have issues with healthcare, education, security, and what have you. Our issues still remain our issues. What must we do right now to solve our issues? Today now, I expect that the president should now be presidential. He should now show that he's the father of all Nigerians. If Kachikwu and P2B refuse to congratulate him, there's nothing wrong with if the president decides to reach out to them, to visit them. So Nigerians can see that he's done everything humanly possible to bring everyone together. He needs all Nigerians to be on board to solve the critical issues before Nigeria today. So he must bring everyone together. He must talk to everyone, opposition, those on his camp, bring everybody together so that we can, as a nation, solve our problems together.
All right. So let me stay with you, Mr. Kachikwu. The judiciary came under attack over this election petition. What do you think can be done to check this?
Well, if I expect that the National Assembly should start looking at this. My late father was a federal high court judge, and I know how he felt about this institution. I was very sad when I saw what Nigerians did ignorantly to this institution. The judiciary is supposed to be the last hope of the common man, but the same common man disreputed this institution. They abased this institution. They debased this institution. They took this institution to the cleaners. They made clear to everyone that they did not believe in the institution and in whatever they will say. They made clear that whatever they will say was corrupt before it was even said. That is wrong. Because our democracy depends on the integrity of this institution, on the faith we have in this institution. So if we say to ourselves as a people that we have no trust, no faith in the judiciary, what are we standing on as a people? We might as well let a state of anarchy prevail, because the judiciary is supposed to uphold society, uphold constitution that frames society. If we say it does not exist, it is corrupt, we might as well let a state of anarchy prevail in Nigeria. So the National Assembly must look at this. What do we do to people who promote anarchy by disreputating the judiciary? What should we do to those people who consciously, who intentionally do things to make Nigerians doubt the integrity of the judiciary? What should we do to those people? This should not be allowed to happen. Tell you what, it's very easy for people to have taken those pictures that they saw all over the internet of our judges, gone after them, gone after their families. That's what they intended. What happened if people had done that, killed someone, had lost their life in this process? What do we then say to ourselves? I expect that the National Assembly should be looking at this critically and come up with a solution to this.
All right. Let me come back to the studio. I mean, just like here, what do we do to people who promote anarchy by disrespecting the judiciary?
Well, in addressing that, I'll also come with another legal maxim that says that your right to your expression, to do what you feel you want to do, stops where my right to privacy and dignity begins. And I think that it's important that that point is driven home. Mr. Kachikwu alluded to certain things that were scary, really. when you started seeing tweets of children, of justices, their addresses, and then it began to look really funny, because it looked more like an intimidation. We need to stem that in time. But when you look at how we have gotten here, like I've said, the weed and the chaff, the weed and the crop analogy. When you let the weeds grow, they kill the crops. When you allow ignorant information fester, they kill the right information. When people understand that there are rules and there are procedures, the question now would be to those who are representing their interest. Have you met the conditions precedent? Have you done all that you need to do to fight my cause? Don't come and tell me XYZ, right? And I think that information, when you pass across that information, everything that we're seeing today is a product of information and how it is flowing, right? And so government must now sit down to look at, I'm not saying gag people, I'm not saying, infringe on people's freedom of expression, but information to counter fake, false, misleading, or truthful information must now be intentionally done. And
you think people won't still see it as gagging?
Well, so the thing is, if I tell you not to tell a lie, if you're telling a lie and I tell you, you can't tell that lie, it's not gagging. I'm telling you, do not mislead the public. No, there are rules, there are laws.
All right.
That clearly stop individuals from disseminating fake news.
All right. So we witnessed the live transmission of that judgment. How would this benefit the nation's legal system?
Well, if anything, it opened up the windows, it opened up the doors for the world to see and understand legal reasoning. What I would say to anyone is dispassionately listen to the judgment, listen to the courts, and follow what they have said. You will see to a very large extent that, okay, so the court actually has rules. They actually have procedures. They mention section this, they mention section that, they mention this rule. Do your independent research. The world is a global village. In this, my telephone, you have everything, right? Go, search, and then add the puzzle together and say, oh, does it really add up? Oh, so this is how it is. And that's what televising that judgment has done. It has taken the courts from the building into the living rooms of every Nigerian who made out time to listen. But we must also not make that the norm. The court is an open place, the public place. Anyone who comes, who wants to walk in, apart from certain specific kind of matters that are closed. But the court is an open room where everyone can come to. And remember, we have the Freedom of Information Act, where you can always write to get whatever information. You can write the courts and ask them for the record of proceedings, and they'll give you all the record of proceedings to study as an individual. So,
Mr. Kachikwu, the same question for you, but let me flip it. We witnessed the live transmission of that judgment. How will this benefit our electoral process?
Allow that, considering the fact that people were posting their pictures everywhere. So it was essentially them saying, you don't do that, we'll do it ourselves. There's no need for you to do that. We're here live. We believe in what we're about to present to you, and we're presenting it to all Nigerians. These are the facts of the matter. This is our stand on this matter. I believe that a lot of people who were misguided prior to the judgment today, a lot of people had more understanding. They were enlightened. Because like I said, throughout the land, you will see the reaction. I thought that all over social media will be on fire, just like what happened with the presidential appeal panel. But you could see that it's percolated. They could see the common sense in the judgment. And allowing this to be televised also showed integrity, that we believe in what we're saying, we stand by what we're saying, and we will not allow anybody interpret this for us, because what happens is if they are not televised it's very easy for the same people to go tomorrow on pages of papers and start misrepresenting the judgment or what was said by the judges. But all heard them live and direct. And I think it's good for the judiciary and should be sustained. It should not just be it should be sustained so that Nigerians can have a fair and balanced understanding of everything that goes on in that court system.
Right, so let me stay with you. One more. This judgment came 8 months after the February 25 presidential election and 5 months after inauguration. How will you describe the improvements being witnessed in the duration of election-related litigation in the country?
Well, I believe that it's one of the things we must look at. I think that we must amend our constitution to ensure that any president, before he's sworn in, all matters have got to be adjudicated before the president is sworn in. Again, you have to also understand our peculiar nature as a people. What did the framers of our constitution intend? What were they trying to avoid? Were they trying to avoid a situation where a sitting president, who were he to hand over to someone who was not to his liking, who could see how he could unduly influence the court, or what have you? What was their thinking? But whatever they were thinking, I think it's morally wrong for us to have a situation where a president is sworn in and several months later, after he's been congratulated again today to say he's won. So which election did he win? The Supreme Court judgment election or the voters' election, right? So we must have a situation where all litigation must happen prior to the president being sworn in. We must go back to the table and look at how we can ensure that that happens.
All right, so, I mean, before, it used to take years before judgment is delivered, but now, few months, isn't that some improvement? Mr. Kachikwu?
That's some improvement, but still not enough. We must have a situation where all litigation happens before the president is sworn in. That must happen. We cannot have a situation where a president is sworn in and then you start rethinking what could and what could not happen. No. We must have a situation where everything must happen before the president is sworn in. This is what obtains in most nations. This is what should obtain here. And there's nothing wrong with that. If we can do it in 6 months or 7 months, we might as well. There's no rush for us to do a handover. We should conduct our elections with enough time for us to go through the judicial process and then do a proper handover. So we should give ourselves enough time. If it's 6 months, let's go to the 6 months. Let's have elections 6 months before the handover, so we have enough time to adjudicate all processes.
All right, Mr. Murray, he made a point. Quite desirable, but is it practicable?
Well, I think that the ideal thing, and what we should even be gunning for, is a place where the role of the courts in determining the credibility of our elections and in affirming electoral positions won is reduced to the barest minimum, if not even completely removed. And I think that that will come from a more transparent electoral process, in tune with current realities, more intentional and bespoke investment in technology to help, internet and technological penetration across the country, so that really you can now have that level of, digitization of our electoral system. That will compress, the time for voting, also reduce and remove the irregularities that we're complaining about. And I think that that's what we should be gunning for. This is a step in the right direction. We've had a shorter time, but it can be shorter. I align with Mr. Kachikwu to say, yes, if really the courts must be involved in this, then they should conclude everything before the swearing in, because there are more far-reaching implications that really we will not have time to talk about here.
All right. So, Mr. Kachikwu, President Tinubu can now focus on governance after his legal victory. What do you advise him to focus on after this tough legal battle?
First priority for the president is to define what is the Nigerian nation, what is our charter as a people, what binds us together under the green, white, green of our flag, what will unite us, what is that charter that all Nigerians can subscribe to that makes us Nigerians. This is what this president must begin to define so that he is the president of the modern Nigeria. This is what's going to bring peace and unity to Nigeria. Once he does that, everything becomes easy, because when all Nigerians subscribe, sign to this new Nigeria, to this new deal, to this charter, every Nigerian can come to the table of equality, of equity, hoping to benefit and hoping to play their part in betting that new Nigeria. This is what this president should and must do. Beyond that, I believe that it's important that we have an opposition that does not just oppose, but proposes. They must see themselves as partners in labor, in saving the Nigerian state. The Nigerian state is buffeted by myriad problems today. This government has inherited this from a previous APC government that has not done well, but this government still has to bring all hands on deck to solve the problems before us. And our problems are enormous. We need all talents on board. We need every Nigerian on board to help in the process of nation building. It's how this president goes about doing this that will signpost to all Nigerians who he is. Is he the president of Nigeria? Is he the president of APC? Is he the president of the Yoruba nation? His actions will tell Nigerians who he is.
All right, then. Let me come to you, Mr. Mori, in 30 seconds. Atiku and Obi are yet to react to this judgment. What does this tell us?
Well, nothing. Let's give them time to soak it all in, and if they want to respond, the journey is ahead.
All right, so President Tinubu has also waved the olive branch to his opponents. Do you see them agreeing to work with him?
As is expected. So, like Mr. Kachikwu has said, it's Nigeria. And we must all come together. And that's my biggest challenge with opposition has always been, do you want the country to fail so you can be right? Or do you want this country to succeed and then you disagree on principle? And we must come together and salvage this country. We are going through very unique times, right? Our economy is not in the best of shape. Our naira is daily being devalued, right? We're battling uncontrolled inflation. These are issues that the president must now focus on. And everyone have got to join him, right? Anyone who, for political reasons, decides to undermine the growth of this nation. I'll give you a proverb my mother always used to say to me, you throw a stone in the marketplace, you never can tell who is going to hit.
All right. That's a good way to end the show. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with a lawyer, Omori Edoigiawerie, and the APC candidate of the 2023 presidential